Hello. I'm Interweb Studios and today we visit an old Reddit thread and see who is the luckiest person in history. Make sure to like, subscribe and comment 777 for good luck. With that out of the way, sit back and enjoy. Frane Selick, a Croatian music teacher, began his lucky streak in 1962 on a train going from Sarajevo to Dubrovnik. The train unexplainably jumped the tracks and fell into an icy river, killing 17 passengers. Selick managed to swim to shore suffering from hypothermia and a broken arm. A year later, while on an airplane, its door flew off and Selick was sucked out of the airplane. The plane crashed and he woke up in a hospital. He'd been found in a haystack. Then in 1966, Selick was on a bus that went off the road and into a river. 4 people were killed, but he suffered minor injuries. In 1970, his car caught on fire and he stopped it and got out just before the whole car blew up. In 1973, Selick was driving another car when a faulty fuel line sprayed gas all over the engine and flames blew through his air vents. His only injury was the loss of most of his hair. In 1995 he was hit by a bus, but unsustained minor injuries. Finally in 1996 he was driving on a mountain road when he went around a bend and saw a truck coming right at him. He ran his car through a guardrail and jumped out to watch his car blow up 300 feet below him. In 2003, Selick bought a lottery ticket for the first time in 40 years at the age of 74. He ended up winning $1 million. Death realized he met his equal, and commemorated his skill. The Lord of the Underworld pays his dues. In terms of chance, I'd say Bill Morgan. Australian Bill Morgan was declared dead for 14 minutes and lived unscathed. To celebrate his survival, he bought a scratch card and won a $27,000 car. The news asked him to reenact the scratch card moment, so he bought another card and won a $250,000 jackpot. Probably the luckiest and unluckiest person in history, Tsutomu Yamaguchi. He was at both Hiroshima and Nagasaki and survived until 2010. On vacation for the first bomb, goes home and boom, God duckin' damn it, not again. He led a healthy life after the bombings, with the radiation consequences only appearing later. He died of stomach cancer at the age of 93. If it wasn't for this he would still live long because he did not look old when he died. Whoever is having sex with Emma Watson. I caught a shiny chansey with one safari ball. Jesus man, what are the chances? A 5.9% chance to catch a chansey with a single safari ball. Approximately 6 in 100. A 4% chance to encounter a chansey in Area 2 of the Kanto Safari Zone. 4 in 100. A 0.012% chance to encounter a shiny Pokemon. 1 in 8192. A 0.00003% chance to encounter a shiny chansey in Area 2 of the Kanto Safari Zone and catch her with a single safari ball. Approximately 3 in 10 million. Definitely Timothy Dexter. That article doesn't quite do it justice, but I highly recommend the version in Uncle John's Bathroom Reader, not sure which edition though. Basically, he was a completely incompetent businessman who accidentally got lucky dozens of times and built a fortune. After a while, some of his peers, who all hated him because they were actually smart and he was just dumb and lucky, told him to ship coal to Newcastle, the equivalent of telling someone to ship oil to North Dakota or Saudi Arabia. He did, and it got there just in time for a major strike at the coal mines, so he made a ton of money from what should have been a bad idea. Here are some excerpts from the article. Aged 50, Dexter wrote a book about himself, A Pickle for the Knowing Ones or Plain Truth in a Homespun Dress, in which he also complained about politicians, the clergy and his wife. The book contained 8,847 words and 33,864 letters, but no punctuation and its capitalization seemed random. In the second edition, Dexter added an extra page which consisted of 13 lines of punctuation marks with the instructions that readers could distribute them as they pleased. All luck aside, this part about him is pretty entertaining. His relationships with his wife, daughter, and son also suffered. This became evident when he started telling visitors that his wife had died, despite the fact that she was still very much alive and that the woman who frequented the building was simply her ghost. Edit and this one. In one notable episode, Dexter faked his own death to see how people would react. About 3,000 people attended Dexter's mock wake. Dexter did not see his wife cry, and after he revealed the hoax, he caned her for not grieving enough. Don't judge me, but possibly Hitler. He survived a shell that killed everyone but him in the trench in World War I. then moved on to become the head of the Nazi Party, got elected, and then moved on to avoid narrowly, by chance, how many assassinations. He's pretty lucky, at least. I remember reading that he survived a bomb assassination attempt in a bunker because the person next to him moved the briefcase containing the bomb to the other side of the table while completely unaware there was a bomb inside. On top of all of that, in a post-World War I barracks he was nearly beaten to death by his fellow Germans for making anti-Semitic statements. An Irish sergeant saved him from being stabbed with bayonets. It is Orlando Bloom. Okay, well, I am kind of serious. Early in life he goes to school and studies acting. He is good enough to get a few bit parts in a few things, but for the most part he is in student plays etc. Then he falls 3 stories and breaks his back. He lands just right and avoids being paralyzed. After recovering from his fall he goes back to do a small play and Peter Jackson just happened to be in the audience and asked him to audition for his next project, the Lord of the Rings trilogy. So his first non-bit part, non-small theater role is in one of the biggest movie series of all time. If you watch some of the making of documentaries for those movies you get a sense that he and Liv Tyler did a little more than just carpool. Even if not, he then did other movies like Troy and Black Hawk Down as well as the Pirates of the Caribbean. Along the way he has dated women like Sienna Miller, Kate Bosworth, Kirsten Dunst, Penelope Cruz, and of course he was married, until recently, to Miranda Kerr. An inch one way or the other during his fall and ends up in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. Instead he lands just right and goes on to be one of the biggest stars in the world. Me. I beat cancer twice. Beat emotional, physical and sexual abuse from both parents as an only child. I beat parents defrauding me out of $40,000. Took my parents' anti-intellectualism and turned into 2 undergrads and a master's degree. By age 32 made more in 1 year's salary than they did in any 1 year combined. Came out of all of it with my wife, who saw through the atmosphere of shit that surrounded me and deduced that that wasn't me, and that I was worth salvaging. Anyone who has sat through most of my life stories typically is surprised that I'm still alive and or not bitter, twisted and alone. That doesn't make me awesome, that makes me damn lucky. That isn't luck. You worked for that. Luck would be if this all happened and you just pooped out some degrees and a paycheck. Kudos, by the way, if what you're saying is true. Ringo Starr. A moderately talented drummer who joins a band after they pay some very hard dues. Oh, and that band happens to have 3 other guys who could front bands of their own. Oh, and one of them ended up being the greatest pop songwriter of all time and another one of them a cultural icon. Teddy Roosevelt. When he was giving a speech he was shot and the bullet just happened to hit a glasses case and some manuscript. He then continued the speech for another 90 minutes. Shooting him didn't hurt him. It just made him angrier. I have just been shot, but it takes more than that to kill a bull moose. And then he spoke for 90 minutes. He got shot. And then gave a speech. For an hour and a half. In high school, I went to go buy some Gatorade from the vending machine. They were small bottles, like 8 ounces or something IDK. It was also kind of a rip-off, because they cost $1.25 per bottle. Even though they should cost around 50 cents given how small the bottles were. Anyway, I was thirsty, so I decided to buy some anyway. So inserted my money and pressed the button that vended the Gatorade. Out of the machine, popped a Gatorade bottle, as expected. Then another. And another. In total, the machine vended 8 bottles of Gatorade. 8 bottles. And I only paid for 1. I don't think you understand how big of a deal this is. I saved like $8.75. So I put the 8 bottles of Gatorade in my backpack. I drank 2 or 3 myself, and just gave the rest away. I don't think this has ever happened before, so I consider myself to be the luckiest man to have ever lived. Edit. Our school vending machines don't take $10s, or even $5s for that matter, so if I would have accidentally put in a $10 bill, I don't think it would have accepted it. Also, in case anyone was wondering, the flavor of Gatorade was fierce grape. Andrew Jackson. He survived what was to be the first assassination attempt of a sitting president of the US, only because the assassin's 2 pistols misfired. Both of them. That's practically a 1 in 1 million chance of happening. Both pistols were tested later and worked perfectly. Legend has it, Jackson later beat the assassin with his cane. Don't forget all his duels, even the ones where he got shot first, then calmly returned fire and killed the other man. I've learned that getting shot first was part of this strategy. His opponent would rush the shot and hit him in a non-critical area. Once you shoot you have to just stand there, so Andrew Jackson would eat a bullet and take his sweet time aiming for the kill. That's a hell of a strategy. Step 1. Get shot first. Gavrilo Princip. His organization, the Black Hand, attempted to assassinate the Archduke Franz Ferdinand while he was being driven in his car. Long story short, they botched the initial try because the grenade had a 10-second delay before blowing up harmlessly underneath the wheel of the car. No more than an hour later, one of the other assassins, Princip, was eating a sandwich at a nearby cafe when saw Ferdinand's car with the engine stalled idling just up the road. So he promptly walked up, pulled his gun, and killed Ferdinand. So basically, World War I was kicked off because some lucky Serb assassin was a few yards away when the Archduke's car broke down. Jean Bernadotte was born in 1763 in Pau, southern France. His father was a prosecutor. He wasn't from a poor family, but as you can see he was nowhere near nobility. He was just one of so many middle-class people in 18th century France. A nobody. Then the French Revolution comes and Bernadotte, who had joined the army as a private, started rising through the ranks and managed to befriend a talented general named Bonaparte. When his friend Napoleon was crowned emperor in 1804, Bernadotte was made marshal of the empire. Becoming a marshal after having started as a nobody is quite an achievement, but in Bernadotte's case it was just the beginning. During a battle in Germany in 1806, Bernadotte's army captured some Swedish soldiers who were fighting on Prussia's behalf. As Sweden wasn't officially at war with France, Bernadotte arranged that they were treated as guests and thought nothing more of the matter. In 1810, the Swedish king was deposed after losing Finland to Russia, and shortly after his heir died and Sweden found itself without a king. Then, a Swedish noble, remembering that French officer who had treated those prisoners so kindly, proposed that Bernadotte was offered the crown of Sweden. Even though both Bernadotte and Napoleon thought at first the offer was a joke, the Swedes, desperate to find a king, turned out to be completely serious. Napoleon, thinking he could easily gain Sweden as an ally, let Bernadotte resign his post and go to Stockholm to be proclaimed king. As it turned out, Bernadotte was cleverer than Napoleon was giving him credit for. In 1813 he betrayed his old friend and Sweden joined the alliance against Napoleon. This allowed him to keep his throne after Napoleon's defeat and to gain Norway in 1814. Jean Bernadotte was born a nobody and died a king after a series of unexpected strokes of luck. And, unlike his friend Napoleon or his fellow marshals, not only did his dynasty endure, but his descendants still reign over Sweden today. Joan of Arc. Girl peasant in France, who claimed to be inspired by God himself to save France, which was hopelessly losing a war against England and Burgundy. The French king couldn't be crowned since their traditional location, Reims, was in Burgundian control, and Paris was under English control. She was allowed to join the French attack to lift the siege of Orleans, taking part in the liberation of 4 fortresses in 4 days, leading 2 attacks herself and against the will of the French commanders. She presciently warned of incoming artillery bombardments and survived taking a stone cannonball to her helmet while scaling a ladder, and cleared Reims for the king's coronation. Participated in a battle that the French won so decisively that they wouldn't recover strategic strength for the duration of the war. Also was in an aborted assault on Paris, taking a crossbow bolt to the leg, but still led troops until day's end. She and her family were granted nobility before the year ended. This was very unusual. Nobility was blood and not a meritocracy, and moreover she was, after all, a girl. Eventually captured and executed for heresy by the English, with political motivations, trying to undermine the French king's legitimacy. She was burned at the stake 3 times. And the remains of her remains were tossed into the Seine. The Catholic Church recognized her as a saint in 1920. With that, I hope you enjoy the video. Thank you for sticking around until the end of the video. Since you made it this far you must have enjoyed the content, so don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment 777 for good luck. Until next time.